What's up, guys? Brett Appley here from DailyFanMMA.com, back with another UFC Quick Picks on the Mayo Media Network. We have UFC Kansas City this weekend. Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen in the main event. I think 14 fights on the slate as it stands now, and it should it should be an interesting one. I mean, these prelims, to be honest, are about as sketchy as I've seen them, but some fun fights overall. Interesting kind of strategy dynamic just from a DraftKings perspective, with a lot of the high-priced fighters being not targets we would typically pay up for. So I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and a matchup that I like on this slate as usual from a DraftKings perspective. Before I do, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and why don't you give me your favorite fighter in the 8K range. There are a couple fighters who I project to be more popular than others, but you're going to have to take risks here. And I do think we'll see some standout options after everything is said and done. I just don't think it's very easy to select which one it's going to be. So curious to hear your opinions on that one. Without further ado, let's get into my cash game play of the week, which is going to be Max Holloway at 9K. All right, for cash games, I like Max Holloway. I mean, I think he's going to be probably the most popular fighter on this slate at 9K. But the thing is, he probably would be the most popular fighter on the slate if he was priced at 9.6K. He's minus 175 to win. It's not very long, but fighters up in the 9K range here are not very large favorites either. And Holloway is the biggest name on the slate. 5-round potential against Arnold Allen in the main event, and just a volume specialist, and has been for many, many years. Lands 7.24 significant strikes per minute. I do think Arnold Allen has a chance to win this fight, though, and I don't mind Allen as a cash game play or tournament option at 7.2 either. I do think Holloway's the correct choice to win, just because, I mean, while Allen may be capable of taking a massive step up in competition and succeeding, we just haven't ever seen him prove it to this extent over 5 rounds, especially against an opponent in Holloway who can land upwards of 200, 300, 400 significant strikes in a fight, while Allen, a lot of the time, has gone the distance and is landing 29, 37, 32, 31 significant strikes. He's been very low volume throughout his career. So he's going to really have to step on the gas to compete with Holloway, and I think he's capable of it, especially early. I would like to see him over 5 rounds against adversity before I'm able to pick him in this type of matchup. Regardless, Holloway seems very safe, not necessarily in his chance to win. As I mentioned, he's minus 175, but he should win this fight more often than not, and also he's going to land a large amount of volume more often than not. Even if he loses the fight, I would expect it to come by decision, and he could still rack up 70 plus points on significant strikes alone. So 9K, Holloway has elite volume upside. I do think you can pivot off of him in tournaments just based on his ownership projection and the fact that Allen is defensively sound, absorbs 2.2 strikes per minute, 67% defense. This may not be a ceiling performance from Holloway. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little more slower paced than some of Holloway's past matchups, but Holloway's rates out very, very well from a cash game perspective, especially both sides of the main event do, and he'll be my cash game play of the week there at 9K. Next up, we have my tournament play of the week, and I'm going to give out Rafa Garcia at 9.5K. There are other tournament options I like on this slate, in the 8K range, but they're all very, very risky, and I think a lot of them have potential to just lose outright. Garcia, I feel maybe is a little bit more safe, but also one of the best wrestlers on this slate, which is important from a fantasy perspective as it gives them a higher floor and ceiling. It doesn't strike very well, 3.2 significant strikes landed per minute, 4.21 absorbed, but he's averaging 4.2 takedowns per 15 minutes in his fights in the UFC, excluding his debut against Nasrat. He's landed 5, 7, 3, 3, and 6 takedowns, fighting Clay Guida, who defends takedowns at 68%, is an okay defensive wrestler at this time, but he's also been submitted, I think, in 4 of his last 6 losses, or something of the like. He's always had defensive grappling issues. So I think just from a submission grappling aspect, but I think Garcia, to me, this is less about, Garcia is going to dominate this fight, win inside the distance easily, and more about, if Garcia wins, what does it look like? Is it going to be a boring stand-up based fight? I'm not so sure. I think he wants this fight on the ground, and Guida might want this fight on the ground too. So if Garcia wins, I think we should project him for a few takedowns, if not more. He has back-taking ability, and as noted, we've seen Guida tap to submissions many times. So Garcia winning inside the distance, plus 220. It's not a tremendous number, but I think he has upside. 97, 115, 93 points in his last 3 wins in the UFC. So it's a tricky slate where there's not so many obvious smash spots. I wouldn't label this a smash spot either, but I really like Garcia's grappling equity in a win. It scores very well from a DraftKings perspective. Decent opponent, decent metrics here. So I'm willing to take chances on him more than other options in the 9K range, excluding Holloway there at 9.5K. All right, next up, my salary play of the week. It's going to be Tanner Boser at 7.8K, dropping down to 205 here. He's the underdog to Ion Cutelaba at plus 110. This could have been my matchup of the week as well. I considered it. I will be pretty heavy on this matchup as a whole, mostly because Cutelaba's been kind of a kill or be killed type of fighter in the UFC, especially lately, as he's shown that he's just not a very good nail. And I mean, he's a good hammer in the sense that he has a bunch of early knockout wins, or he's landing 6, 4, 9, 8 takedowns. So he's either knocking you out early or he's wrestling in volume. That's going to give Cutelaba big scores and wins. And I think he's a great tournament option for 8.4K. I picked Boser to win, even though he could lose in those same fashions. He probably will give up takedowns early, but he should be a more comfortable technical striker here than Cutelaba. And Cutelaba, like I said, has just not been a very good nail. He's coming off another knockout loss to Kennedy Nzechukwu. Boser's got some power, and Cutelaba tires pretty quickly. And so if this fight gets past 3-4 minutes, I think Boser could easily turn the tide and find a knockout shot. And at 7.8K, I'm willing to take chances there. Cutelaba, good inside the distance, plus 120. Boser, plus 257. It's not as strong, but again, 7.8K. I think he'll be mildly owned, but he's just very dependent on a knockout, which is always the issue. And really, I just think if Boser wins, there's a pretty decent chance that it does come inside the distance. He's not going to be wrestling with Cutelaba. And yeah, could he win a slow-paced, striking-based decision? Sure, but I would give Cutelaba a better chance to win in that type of matchup, and I think Boser's success is a lot of the time going to come from damage. So I like the fight. I like the fight for it to end inside the distance as well. Minus 240 is a good metric, and I think Boser at 7.8K has a nice mix of win equity and knockout upside. Shouldn't be extremely popular, so he's going to be my salary play of the week at 7.8K. And finally, I'll move on to my matchup of the week. I'm going to go with Bill Algeo versus TJ Brown. Algeo's the favorite, minus 190. Brown plus 165. On DraftKings, Algeo's 8.8K. Brown 7.4K. I mean, I've been on Brown a lot throughout his career. He's got upside, he's got downside, and I like the matchup because Brown, when he loses, he gets hurt a lot of the time, or he gets submitted. That's kind of been a lot of his career, especially on the regional scene. He's lost 2 decisions. His last 2 losses have come by decision, so it's not impossible. Algeo just outstrikes him to a decision and doesn't hit value, but Algeo's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he fights at a high pace on the feet, so I just think there's going to be a lot of exchanges. It's going to give Algeo a decent shot to win inside the distance if he wins at all. Plus 235 inside the distance, it's not great. He's not going to rate out spectacularly well at 8.8K, but he should be lower owned given that Quarantillo and Holloway are priced above and below him. And again, I just like the pace for Algeo, striking volume, some good submission grappling, ability to get a win inside the distance if he gets a win at all. And Brown on the flip side is still a good fighter, but he's probably going to want to wrestle in this matchup, given that Algeo doesn't defend takedowns very well, gives up takedowns to pretty much every opponent he faces. I think I noted like 24 takedowns against him in his last 7 fights. That's TJ Brown, 38% takedown defense, so it's not great either. 55% takedown defense for Bill Algeo, but I mean, yeah, he gave up 8 takedowns to Ricardo Ramos, nearly lost to Spike Carlisle, 5 takedowns to Ricardo Lamas. TJ Brown can wrestle pretty well, averages 3.6 takedowns per 15 minutes. Saw him land 6 takedowns against Charles Rosa, 7 takedowns in a round and a half against Jordan Griffin. So he's capable of it. I don't know that it's going to play out exactly in that way. And I picked Algeo to win because even if Brown does land takedowns, Algeo's still a good submission grappler and should be able to survive, kind of get back to his feet, I would think. So I'm a little bit worried about Brown's ceiling there. But if Brown's to win, I'm expecting several takedowns landed, lots of control time. And that should give him a pretty quality score at 7.4K. Again, high pace of the fight overall, somewhat binary there, but I think it's a fun fight and one I think has a reasonable chance of the winner exceeding value while not being incredibly popular either. That's going to do it this week for the UFC Quick Picks. Thank you again for the support. You can follow me on Twitter, Appley, TTPP, dailyfanmma.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Best of luck in your contest this week, guys. Take care. Stay safe. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.